Hey, it's Coach Taylor here from SmarterTeamTraining.com. I'm actually really excited to have a guy that I've called a friend for a very long time and has been an outstanding resource from a completely different aspect of the field. Predominantly speaking, if I had to label myself, I'd say I would be more that high-effort, high-intensity guy. And I'm always looking for people who are doing Olympic lifts and the powerlifting side of things just to expand my background and have people to go to learn from. And Coach Hicks has been a really cool resource to have very open and candid conversations about different things that are going on in the field. And I always enjoy getting a chance to talk to you, Coach, man. It's always an honor to get a chance to be in your presence and learn from you and take the energy and passion you have for not only the field, but just helping young men and young ladies succeed in the endeavor that they're choosing.
Robert, I feel the same way. I mean, when I met you years ago, you were a young guy that was a go-getter and you do such a great job working with athletes, but also putting on clinics and seminars and trying to help better everybody. So I kind of feel the same way. It's a two-way street, and there's a lot of different ways to skin a cat. So together we'll come up with a good one.
Coach, I know we can post a resume here and a little bit of your bio, along with the podcast here when they download it off the internet. But I want to know a little bit more about the man. Where's your passion for the field come from? And tell me a little bit about what you're doing right now.
It's funny you say that. The university's school paper just did a story on basically it's kind of the fact that I'm old. I just got the emeritus deal last year through National Strength and Conditioning Association. I made a joke that normally when you get emeritus, you're supposed to get a gold watch and be retired. And I kind of feel like I'm just starting. This is my 29th season as a Division I college football strength coach. We just got through playing in the Texas Bowl, which we won. This was my 20th bowl game as a Division I strength coach. And, I learned something every time the kids come in the weight room, every time I talk to you, every time I go to a clinic, which is what I appreciate about this business is, there's science behind it, there's methodology behind it, but at the end of the day, we're still dealing with people, and everybody's a little bit different. What makes everybody tick's a little bit different. So the cookie-cutter approach doesn't always work. You gotta keep trying to learn. You gotta have passion for it, and you gotta be willing to change a little bit. And I think the older I get, instead of being more reluctant to change, the older I get, the more receptive I am to change, because there is newer and better ways of doing things.
Coach, I know you and I've had several, if not many, conversations about program design and how we implement even scheduling weight room and that type of thing. But one thing I want to start the conversation out here with, and I think you're a perfect guy to have this conversation with, is how has your program design changed throughout your career?
When I first started years ago, I was a graduate assistant for, the famous John Stuckey. He's passed away, God rest his soul, who there's a lot of strength coaches out there that came from the Stuckey tree, and the Stuckey tree came from the Coach Hatch tree, and, everybody kind of came from an Olympic lifting, so to speak, background, not necessarily always Olympic lifts, but including some type of Olympic lifting in your program design. My background myself was I played college ball, was only a very average player, got hurt, and happened to be real strong, but not real athletic. So I was a competitive power lifter for a little bit. So when I first started in this business, it was kind of based on the power lifts and how big and strong could you get them. And then I was working for a head coach one time, reminded me they weren't there on weightlifting scholarships. They were there to be better football players. And that was probably the greatest advice I ever got. Then I had to slow down a little bit, and I said, okay, just because these numbers on the board keep going up don't mean they're better athletes. So I guess that was, 87, 88. So I think I got into functional training before anybody knew what it was called. We started ab work and balance work and hip and low back work before there was any catchy phrases as far as doing core. Back in those days, we started doing CrossFit before anybody knew what CrossFit was. But things are a big circle. They're a big wheel. When we were younger and in PE class in high school, you did calisthenics, and then they went away, and then all of a sudden calisthenics are back and they're popular again, and the boot camps and all those type different workouts. I say strength coaches are the world's greatest thieves. Originality is never revealing your sources. So you take a little bit of the best from everything and try to put it into place. At the same time, you don't want to get too watered down. You can be a jack of all trades and a master of none. But at the same time, just sticking to, years ago I stuck to the big three. We were going to bench, squat, and deadlift, and then we were going to bench, squat, and clean. But like I say, the longer I've been in the business and the more need I see with athletes and just trying to improve the athlete themselves, not necessarily the number. I think I've kind of went away from that and now, train movement more so than muscle, train function more so than just one exercise and how much weight you can lift. And then over the years, there's a lot of things that have changed too. Now, injury prevention, neck training, low back training, trying to avoid, any long-term injuries and keep kids healthier.
I want to keep going down that line of program design here a little bit. And generally, some people are going to ask, how often do you guys lift or run? Do you guys do that in the same day? Are you a 3-day guy? Are you a 4-day split, upper, lower body?
It really depends on the time of the year because, primarily I'm a department head here, but primarily I'm a football strength coach. Even though we got our lacrosse program doing the same thing, men's and women's, we got some of our other sports doing similar design because athletes are athletes. I work everything backwards from when the season starts. I work backwards, not forwards. So, knowing if you're going to come to camp in whatever your respective sport is, say in August or September, I know you need 9 weeks of running to be in good shape. You need 7 to 8 weeks of lifting to be in good lifting shape. So during that phase of the year, we're going to lift 4 days a week on kind of a push-pull type split, a Monday, Thursday, Tuesday, Friday, taking Wednesday off. We're going to run 5 days a week during that summer conditioning phase, of which, 1 day is a speed, agility, quickness day, 1 day is long endurance, 1 day is short endurance, 1 day is pure speed, like a speed school, like track practice, and then 1 day is just kind of a gut check or a conditioning type day. But we're going to run 5 days a week, and then that backs us up until the spring, which we do get a spring ball or a spring season, would be in lacrosse, spring ball would be in football. Then we'll lift 2 days a week around the practice schedule, just depending on the time frame of, when they're going to practice, how much contact, those type things. Then that backs us up to the winter program, the dreaded, winter workouts in college football, which we're getting ready to start up here on the 16th of January. We'll run 4 days a week during that time of the year, speed, agility, and quickness 2 days, linear speed 1 day, and conditioning 1 day, and we'll lift 4 days a week. Monday, Tuesday, again, giving them Wednesday off, which Wednesday's the hard conditioning day running-wise, and Thursday and Friday. Then that puts us into in-season, and then it kind of depends on how many snaps a player plays. I have a couple groups, kids that play a lot in the game, above 40 snaps or so in the game, are going to lift 3 days a week, lower body early, usually on Sunday. The game's on Saturday. We flush them out and train lower body hard on Sunday. Then they're going to lift Tuesday and Thursday. Kids that are in the developmental group that are redshirt and that don't play, they train very, very hard on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday's their hard day because they don't have to play in the game on Saturday, and they get 2 full days to recover before Monday again. And then we got the gray area group, the kids that play 12 to 15 snaps in a game that you don't want to lose a year of development on putting them on a maintenance plan like the kids that play a lot, but you still can't beat them up like the kids that don't play at all. So they kind of got a category of their own. And then that puts you right back to the summer again. So it's a year-round plan. It just depends on the sport, on the athlete, and the availability of what you do. But I think you work everything backwards, not forwards.
How do you develop competition in your program, or do you?
Competition, especially in the weight room, is within themselves because, the weights are set. I used to be a real big percentage guy years ago when I first started, and now I still am for the very first workout. First workout, you're going to go 65% of a 1-rep max and go ahead and program out your sets. And I did that for years, and then all of a sudden, it goes to 67.5, and it goes to 70 and to 72. Well, I got thinking, what if you miss? What if you miss a lift? So I started adjusting that workout at the end of that day to set what they're going to work out the next day. So when they leave here, they know that, the next workout coming in, they got to squat 315 for a set of 8. So they know it leaving for the next week. And then the competition itself is succeeding on that card. You want to have overall competitions. You want to have group competition. But in order for an athlete to get better, the first person he's got to compete with himself and the people sitting on his shoulder and the voices that are wanting to talk to him, telling him to stop or not go here and not go as hard. So the first phase of the competition is getting them, to defeat the workout or beat me, is the way I say it. Who won today? Did I win or did you win? Second phase of the workout goes to the group. Are you the top lifter in the group? Did you work harder than anybody else in the group? Then it goes to, your side of the ball or to the team. I've kind of found that I don't like to get it caught up in numbers, because who said just because the kid benched, 400 that day or squatted 500, did he win the competition? Because he may just be naturally stronger or bigger or have better numbers. The kid that may have won the competition is the one that made the most improvement. The kid that missed, he only did 5 reps out of a set of 8 the week before, and the next workout he did all 8. Or, he made the biggest improvement. So I like to look at the competition area as far as a plus or a minus. You either got better that day or you didn't, instead of putting poundages on it to give everybody equal opportunity. And sometimes you get a whole lot more out of kids when effort, attitude, and the way to go about their business counts for competition more so than just the amount of weight lifted.
I always enjoy talking to you about the Olympic lifts and that powerlifting type scenario, and because my background isn't very broad in that, so it's always good to have a resource to go to. And my question has always been to you is how do you develop a progression with the Olympic lifts? So let's take the clean, for example. How do you work from someone who walks in your room on day one that has a very low training age, if not a minimal training age, and then work and progress them through a 4 or 5 year career plan there?
I speak at a lot of clinics, and one of the big things I always speak on is the hang clean, like I say, the Syracuse way. And I'd like to take credit for, I'm the one that invented it, but I didn't. Coach Stuckey taught me years ago. In some ways it may go against the conventional way of teaching it, but we teach it backwards. You see a lot of people teach the movement with a broomstick and then the bar to get the technique down. And, I found especially with football players, they need a little weight to clean up their technique. If it's too light, they don't rely on technique. They kind of muscle it around a little bit, and then that leads into bad habits, and then they never really get any better. And you don't build a speed of movement. You don't build a bar speed. So we kind of teach it backwards. So, the first thing we're going to do basically is teach them how to shrug. And then from a regular shrug, teach them how to power shrug, where they, get the 3 extensions through the ankles, through the knees, through the hips. And from the power shrug, then we teach them how to high pull. And from the high pull, then we go to a dumbbell rip, or actually a dumbbell clean, of which they're going to have to catch it with their elbows very, very high, which teaches them to rack it, shoot their elbows through, land in a proper position, chest up, head up, back flat, good posture. And then once we have those pieces in place, we actually kind of turn them loose and let them try to clean. But especially with our young players, and during the summer when we get them here early, we'll spend 2 weeks on just how to pick it up off the platform and do a shrug, and then how to pick it up off the platform and go into a jump shrug or a power shrug. And, you never thought you'd have to spend time teaching an athlete just how to pick the weight up off the platform. But if you can't teach them how to get it off the ground, apply force back through the platform and keep your body tight and get yourself in that power position in order to execute the next phases of the lift, doesn't matter how good a technician you are at the end of the lift, you blew the beginning of the lift. So like I say, we kind of teach it backwards.
Can you walk me through a little bit of how you evaluate the demographic you get a chance to work with? What tests are you doing to evaluate the players, either conditioning or on the strength side of things?
Everybody gets so caught up in the bench, and especially football players, and they like to compare everything to the NFL Combine because, they see those as the best of the best out of college going to the next level of football. And, the kids I work with are here to try to, be better college players in order to go on to the next level and, leave here with an outstanding degree, but get the opportunity to live a dream, and that's play the highest level they can play. So with that being said, you got to throw in there some of the combine testing so they have something to compare themselves to. So, we do the 225 test for reps. We do a 1 rep max on the bench, but we do it very, very conservative, especially with the young kids. You can tell what a 1 rep max is by what somebody's last set of triples or doubles is within their workout. There are some formulas that come very, very close by seeing how many reps they do with 225. We test vertical jump for power output, leg strength in relation to body weight and overall power output. We test a 40-yard dash for speed. We test a short shuttle for, quickness and agility. We test a 3-cone just like the combine. I'm a little old-fashioned still. Our conditioning test is we test 3 400-yard gassers on a football field and, have assigned times for them. And everybody that's ever ran anything in track knows that the 400 in track is a gut check. That's a real race, and so we do the 400, but we do it on the field, so they have to stop and start. So there's some turns. They have to decelerate, reaccelerate. That's kind of our standard conditioning test. Then we have a lot of little tests along the way we build into it, little mini tests or self-checks. We'll test 6 200s on a day with minimum rest in between, usually like a 3-to-1 work-to-rest ratio in between. Everybody goes, oh, you're not giving them enough rest. Well, we only get 40 seconds between plays in our sport, and we're a no-huddle team right now, too, so we're a little faster. So sometimes your conditioning aspect and testing has to go along with what sport you're going to play. We use a lot of methods, I would say, to check where we are. Testing is also kind of a necessary evil. I don't like to waste a training day just to, get your name on the board or get a T-shirt that says you did this, or this. So it's kind of a fun, builds into our competition phase, but we try to build it into the body of workout and not waste a training day just to come up with a number.
Looking at your administrative roles as far as the implementation of your conditioning goes, can you explain a little bit of how your off-season conditioning and your in-season conditioning program either is similar or different? I mean, how much of a role do you play in in-season conditioning?
Off-season, it's all mine. Coaches can't be with them. So my responsibility is to give the coaching staff the best product in order for them to be able to teach the sport. And I've always believed it doesn't matter what sport you're working with. If the sport coach has to waste time out of practice or teaching to develop conditioning, you haven't done your job as far as getting the athlete ready. Our job is to give a sport coach the absolutely best product he can or she can to teach their sport, no matter what the sport is. So, the conditioning aspect in the off-season is totally up to the strength coach. You got to analyze what the sport is, what the energy systems that need to be used, what the recovery time is in between, and, attack that accordingly. I know I was fascinated at one of your first clinics I went to when you were working with the field hockey, doing the heart rate monitor and monitoring the progress and the recovery time. I don't go to that extent. Well, I don't have that many heart rate monitors to put on a whole football team. But I said, I'm kind of onto something, too, without even knowing the way you were doing it, because we kind of adjust work to rest ratio, like I say, depending on if it's a fast-paced play or slow-paced play. In season, it's a little bit different. Some of it has to go by feel. There's kind of a fine line. You got to get their legs back from the game on Saturday for the next Saturday, but you also have to get the conditioning level up. So I deal closely with the head coach on the number of snaps during practice, what practice is like that day. If a conditioning session is going to be coming right off a drill period where there's a lot of running, like a 7-on-7 or a pass scale, or if it's coming off an indie period where there's not as much running. But we try to make it as game-like as possible. I'm not one that wants to run just for the sake of running. In order to get our conditioning level, sometimes we do a lot of things. We call it dog in the park, but it's basically just, on defense, throw the ball and chase it, run to the ball, which everybody wants to see defensive players running hard to the ball. And they talk about the sign of a great, well-conditioned defense is always running to the ball. Well, the ball don't always seem to fall in a straight line, so you have to adjust and redirect and all that. So, sometimes we just throw the ball and go chase it. Same thing on offense. We try to run perfect plays or game-type rhythm plays, without the structure of necessarily calling the play and running a play, but the similar movement patterns, the metabolic-type conditioning, similar movement patterns. We use a lot of different tools to try to get there. Sometimes we play tag. Sometimes it's ultimate frisbee. Sometimes it's a lot of other things, because I find athletes always condition harder and push themselves harder when there's a challenge and somebody's going to win or lose, or when it's a little bit more fun than just, all right, let's line up and run from point A to point B over and over again.
When you're structuring the schedule in your weight room, they're working with a couple teams, obviously. Is there a better time of the day to work out with your environment?
I personally think that, working out in the morning, I get the most bang for my buck out of the athletes. They're not wore out from school yet. They don't have any reason to be tired from anything, so I don't have any excuses. And then, right after we have a training session, they can start their day off with a good meal and then go take care of the rest of their responsibilities as far as being a student athlete. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work that way because of class schedules. But the majority of our training takes place in the mornings. I split the days up. If a guy's got a 9 o'clock class, he'll lift at 7:30. It'll be a good hour lift and then grab something to eat, or, we use chocolate milk as a recovery tool right when, as soon as they leave the weight room. Then they'll either, go to the dining hall and grab something to eat or get a to-go type breakfast of which, they'll get a couple granola bars, protein bars, some cereal, a couple chocolate milks and make it to class and then go eat after class. A lot of it, though, is to do with in, a college setting. You got a lot of things you got to battle with: study halls, class schedule, getting them here and there, bus schedules, when the buses run, when they get to this class. Ideal situation, you try to train them in the morning and then get them a good nutritional aspect and get them fed well afterwards and get them some rest and then go about the rest of their day. You kind of have to adjust things a little bit, but, if there's a will, there's a way.
You brought up a little bit of the injury conversation. I think that's one of the unique aspects of some of the really better programs. They actually do accommodate the injuries that occur during the year, and hopefully none of that does occur. But when it does occur, what are some common ways that you kind of use as guidelines to maybe, just to avoid some of the overuse injuries?
Well, I spend, one day next week, I'll sit down with our sports medicine staff, and we'll go over every injury that occurred during this preseason and in season. Look to see if there's any recurring theme. If there is a recurring theme, we'll try to address it this off season. I like to think that we're smart enough to address things that we know that are going to happen prior to the season. We had a few ankles last year in spring practice. This year in our summer program, because we had a few ankles, we decided that we'd do all of our warm-ups and without shoes on and just in socks. Get a little more balance, get a little more proprioception, strengthen the feet, strengthen the ankles a little bit more balance-wise, and, knock on wood, we cut down our ankle injuries during this season. We also did a few more things in the weight room using the AirX pad, doing step-ups, doing certain movements on an AirX pad for a little bit more balance and stability, factor into ankle. A few years ago, we were having some shoulder issues, so in our dynamic warm-up this year, we put in a whole shoulder program, very, very similar to what they would do in the training room if they had a shoulder injury. We just prehabbed it and we put it in for everybody prior to the shoulder injury. So, the relationship you have with your sports medicine staff or your PTs, even a team doctor or a doctor if you're in a different setting, if one person needs it, even if the other, 12 or 15 kids in that group don't necessarily need it, it's not going to hurt them. And if you can cut down on one injury, you've done a lot for the athlete and for the program. So, over my years, my warm-up has got longer and longer, and the workout probably got shorter and shorter. Some of the players think the warm-up's harder than the actual lift itself because we try to address a lot of those needs in the warm-up itself. And truthfully, a lot of the things that we're doing in that dynamic warm-up and into injury prevention, come from, like, attending your clinic, where you always seem to have a PT, you always seem to have a nutritionist, you always seem to have somebody that's not a sports-specific person, but more of a functional-specific person. And you pick up a move here or there that you add to your own repertoire, and like I said, if you can cut down on any injury at all, it's worth the time spent on it.
I don't think we ever had this conversation, but it's in my list of questions that people had when we're talking college environments. Are your players using wrist straps or weight belts or any of that type of thing? And if so, when, why, how kind of thing?
I'm not a real big believer in belts. I know I was a former power lifter, and, I had 3 different belts I trained with. I had the training belt that was loose, and I had one a little bit closer to competition. Then I had the competition belt that you could only do your big lifts in because it was so stiff. And down the line, I got to where I couldn't hardly function without having the belt. And when, we started addressing more of the core training and trying to get the abs and low back in balance and not have one body part stronger than the other, what was creating some problems ourselves, we kind of went away from the belts as far as squatting and our cleaning because we hoped that our core program, our low back program, and the progression that we use from starting low to a high point, you build that strength up. Now we get to a certain point that, kids are going to lift real heavy. We got some big people in college football that are going to throw a tremendous amount of weights around. Just for their mental aspect of it, I'll let them use a belt once they get, up to a certain percentage and a little bit higher in weight. But we try to, at the beginning, teach them all to go without it. We do use straps when we clean because we clean from the hang. If we clean from the floor, where the bar was only going to move in one direction. There would be no need for straps because you're not redirecting the bar, so you can just, teach a hook grip and the bar is only moving one way. And once you complete the lift, you drop it and re-grip and do again. Since we clean from the hang and we don't actually drop the weight, if we're doing a set of 6, we don't drop it at the top. We retrace the movements and work the negative phase of the lift itself, which I really believe helps our strength gains as much as the movement itself. Sometimes we get stronger on the lifts they miss than the lifts they make just because they have to retrace their steps and handle the weight. But because we do go from the hang, we do use straps just because we redirect the weight. But in any of our other movements, we rely on functional strength. And we do a lot of grip stuff and, some fun competition stuff. We do some farmers walks and some other things just to improve that aspect.
Coach, I know you do a great job of presenting around the country and really having a lot of positive messages. Is there one message that you really wish that people can take from you when they get a chance to see you present?
Nobody's bigger than the program. Nobody has all the answers. The greatest thing I get out of presenting at clinics is every time I have to look at what I do in order to present it to someone in public or to try to help somebody with it, makes you reevaluate what you do yourself. It seems like every time I go through what I'm doing to present to somebody, I find something that I really, really like or don't like as much as I thought I did. And then when I have to present at a clinic and justify to someone why I do it, and I don't ever want to come back to that, I just do it because I think as soon as you start that I do it because that's the way I do it, without any validity behind it or without any research behind it, you're setting yourself up for failure a little bit. So, presenting at clinics and attending and participating in clinics and participating in the questions and answers makes us all better because it keeps us sharp. And the sharper we stay as coaches, the better product that we give the athlete. As long as the athlete's willing to give us effort and attitude, us putting them in the right situation to get better is our responsibility. And attitude and effort's like a dirty shirt. You can change it in a minute's notice anytime you need to. For us as coaches, I think sometimes we get away from realizing that we are dealing with people, not just, widgets or robots, and they're not going to follow everything perfect, and it's not going to look perfect every time on the card because everybody's makeup is a little different. And when we realize that if we can touch them as far as the trust factor, they trust us, we trust them, the accountability factor, being where they're supposed to, when they're supposed to, the way they're supposed to, that the technical proficiency or actually the learning how to do it will kind of take care of itself if we coach the person and the movement, not the muscle and not the lift.
Well, Coach, man, I really appreciate you taking some time out of your day here. I want to thank you very much for being obviously a friend and always being a confidant in some of the conversations we've had when I was in the college sector and trying to guide me a little bit as far as some of the things we were doing and going through and developing as I was a young professional. And I appreciate and really want to thank you again for just continuing that friendship here as we've gone on to future endeavors. And again, getting a chance to have you speak at different events with that I put on, or even get a chance to shoot you a text or an email or phone call just to learn from you on a constant basis, man, has been really a pleasure. And I thank you very much for your time.
I'd really like to thank you too for putting together a venue like this that people can take advantage of and network and share ideas. Everybody goes share secrets. There aren't any secrets. I mean, 135 weighs 135, whether it's in your place or in my place. A set of 5 is a set of 5. It's how you go about it. It's how you get people to believe in you. It's not necessarily just always getting the athletes to believe in you. It's getting other people to believe in you, get everybody better, and then the relationships formed. I've been fortunate to attend some of your events where you always have a little bit of an outside the box. You always have a nutritionist there. You always have somebody there with the heart rate type things. You always have somebody there, with the FMS or some functional stuff. You always seem to have a PT, and you kind of bridge the gap, so to speak, with all the different disciplines kind of rolled into one. And I think everybody benefits from getting together and kind of round tabling. And even at some of your events when everybody sits at the end and answers questions and answers and you pass the mic around, there's a lot of different ways to answer the same question. So if you want to keep getting good at what you do, just listen and don't be hard-headed. I was hard-headed when I was young. I'm more open-minded now that I'm old.
Coach, if anybody had any questions and wanted to reach out to you, how can they go about doing that?
Easiest way would be if you go to Syracuse University's athletic department website, just click on my name, my bio, and all my information is there, and it's also my email address. They just click on the email address, and it'll open up, and they can shoot me an email. I might not get to it in the most timely manner, but I'll get to it at some point. I'll be glad to help any way I can.
Coach, man, thank you very much for taking some time out of your day here. I want to wish you a Happy New Year, and again, it's an honor to have you involved with the project here, my man. You
too, and like I say, anybody that they can needs to take advantage of the things that you put on, because, you know, if there's 30 minutes of me and you talking on the phone, if you can get 1 minute out of it, can help one of your athletes or change something in your program, it's worth the time you spent.